insert from this computer. All right, we're recording. We're also live. I'm live on Facebook and recording. Shalom, everyone. It's Brother Doug again from the Awakened by Yahuwah Fellowship Group. I'm alone tonight. And there's a study that's been on my mind that I wanted to do, and it's very brief, and I kind of wanted to get it done before next Shabbat, to be honest. So let's see if you guys can see this right here. It's called Differences in the Book of Nahum, or Nahum, however you want to pronounce that prophet. The LXX Septuagint versus the Masoretic text, modern Old Testament, which is in most of our English Bibles, by the way. So the MT is the Old Testament you would have in your King James, your ESV, your NLT, so on and so forth. Okay, so first cross-reference and bullet point I have here is Nahum, chapter 1, verse 7. We're going to look at this. Okay, and I think for a change, instead of eSword, I'm going to be using this. I'm going to be using the Word software, the Word. So we're going to first go to, I think we'll just go to a generic Masoretic text Bible here, ESV 2011. And we are going to go to Nahum here. And okay, so chapter 1, we're going to look at verse 7. Okay, so verse 7 here. Yahuwah is Tud, a stronghold in the day of trouble. He knows those who take refuge in him. Okay. Yahuwah is Tud to them that wait on him in the day of affliction, pretty similar. And he knows them that reverence him. Oh, that's different. Okay, so you have reverence versus trust. Even though trust is not a negative thing, reverence is a little bit stronger, so I would have to agree with the Septuagint on that one. So we're going to just be moving on here kind of quick. So now we're going to go to verse 10 here of chapter 1. We're going to go to verse 10. So it says, and I'll go back to the ESV 2011 here. For they are like entangled thorns, like drunkards as they drink. Obviously, this is talking about, people that are given into strong drink and wine and that like to get drunk, which is a sin. It's a sin to be a drunkard. It's actually one of the things the Apostle Paul actually warned one of the assemblies that he was writing epistles to forewarn them a second time, those that practice such things as being a drunkard will not inherit the kingdom, along with fornication and other various sins. So let's look at the LXX here, the Septuagint. For shall be laid bare even to the foundation, shall be devoured as twisted yew and as stubble full dry. So it's very weird. It doesn't talk about drunkards in the Septuagint there. I kind of agree with the Masoretic on that verse. It's kind of weird that the Septuagint doesn't mention that. But anyway, as we go along here, verse 11. So we're going to go to the next verse here. Verse 11. And so here we go. Verse 11, and we're going to go back to the ESV 2011, verse 11 here. From you came on who plotted evil against Yahuwah, a worthless counselor. It's kind of interesting. A worthless counselor. Okay, so let's see here. Hold on, Hold on, guys. Technical difficulties here. Let's see. Am I really that blind? Like, come on. Nahum 1:11. There is one come out of you that imagines evil against Yahuwah, a wicked counselor. Okay, so wicked counselor versus how you shall proceed a device against Yahuwah, counseling evil things, hostile. And the to him there is not in the original Greek. That's why it's whited out there. and bracketed out. The original Greek doesn't have to him. So the difference is, instead of the Masoretic text talks about a wicked counselor, Septuagint just says those that devise evil counsels against him. So there is a difference there, a pretty minor one, but there's a difference. Okay, so now we're going to go to verse 12 here. Stupid phone. We're going to go to verse 12 here. It says, okay, who rules over many waters, Nahum 1:12. Okay, Nahum 1:12. We're going to go back to the word software here. Okay. All right, it says, thus says Yahuwah, who rules over many waters, even thus shall they be sent away, and the report of you shall not be heard any more. Okay. Let's see here. Then we're going to go to the ESV 2011. Thus says Yahuwah, they that are full of strength, many they will be cut down and pass away. Though I have afflicted you, I will afflict you no more. I kind of find this funny. It doesn't mention that Yahuwah rules over many waters. That, pretty much, the Septuagint talks about how Yahuwah rules over many waters, and how he's the possessor of heaven and earth. You could say it's an allegory for. Kind of find it interesting the Masoretic does not have that there. To me, it's pretty important because it shows you the type of spirit that was in this Egyptian king in Ezekiel 29. Let's see, I just want to go here real quick and show you the connection here. It says, in the 12th year, in the 10th month, on the 1st of the month, the word of Yahuwah came to me, saying, Son of man, set your face against Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and prophesy against him, against the whole of Egypt, and say, thus says Yahuwah, behold, I am against Pharaoh, the great dragon that lies in the midst of his waters, that says, the rivers are mine, and I made them. Well, it's kind of interesting because here we have someone else other than Yahuwah saying that the rivers and waters are his and he made them. Yet in Nahum 1:12 in the Septuagint shows that the waters and rivers are Yahuwah's, not the great dragon, not Satan's. The waters belong to Yahuwah, according to Nahum 1:12. Very interesting paradigm there. So here we go. Nahum chapter 2, verse 13. Again, if you've been with the group, that fellowship group that I'm part of, you've been with us for our studies, this is a common difference here. This is definitely a repeated pattern here. And it continues in the book of Nahum here. So we're going to look at Nahum 2, verse 13. Okay. Nahum 2:13. So we're going to go back to Nahum here. All right. Go back to Nahum chapter 2, verse 13. Okay. Oh, I see how they do it here. Okay, they put it to the side there. Okay. Behold, I am against you, says Yahuwah Almighty. This is Septuagint, so Almighty. And I will burn up your multitude in the smoke, and the sword shall devour your lions. And I will utterly destroy your prey from off the land, and your deeds shall no more at all be heard of. So this is talking about Yahuwah Almighty and his fierce anger and wrath, that he's going to burn up Nineveh's multitude in smoke, and the sword shall devour their lions and will destroy their prey from off the land, and their deeds shall no more be heard of. So very similar to Yahuwah's wrath that he's going to execute on Babylon. But the interesting difference here is we have Almighty, and as you'll see in the ESV, which uses the Masoretic text, it says, behold, I am against you, declares Yahuwah of armies, commonly mistranslated as of hosts. Okay. The word there is actually, the Hebrew word for armies is actually sabayot, which means military army, a big multitude of people. Obviously, he's talking about the armies of his angels. He's Yahuwah of heaven's armies, So the major difference, Septuagint has Yahuwah Almighty, Masoretic has Yahuwah of Armies, but it's pretty much the same other than that. Let's see here. So we got Nahum chapter 3, verse 4. And this is a pretty interesting connection here. So we're going to look at Nahum chapter 3, verse 4. Okay, so Nahum 3, verse 4. And it says here, he rebukes the sea and makes it dry. He dries up all the rivers, Bashan and Carmel wither. The bloom of Lebanon withers. So again, it's talking about he rebukes the sea and makes it dry. Kind of see a little bit of oneness there, you know, how Yahushua rebuked the sea when Kepha and, you know, Peter and John and Matthew and Mark and Luke and all of them were on the boat. So it's kind of interesting. I might have to make a note of that. Oh, that's Nahum 1. That's my bad. I meant to do Nahum 3. My bad about that. That's something I should, maybe Yahuwah was bringing me to that for another reason. My audience, maybe he was reminding me of that for a reason. Let's see. And all for the countless whorings of the prostitute. Okay, Nahum 3:4. Graceful and of deadly charms, who betrays nations with her whorings. I'm starting to see who this is talking about here. And peoples with her charms. Who in Greek mythology would have charms and be a prostitute and seduce men? Kind of sounds like Circe to me. It's kind of interesting. So here we go. Let's go to the Septuagint here of that same verse. It says, I think there's even more of a connection here with Revelations than Septuagint in this verse. Because of the abundance of fornication, a fair harlot and well-favored skilled in sorcery. I'm pretty sure this Greek word for sorcery here, I'm pretty sure it would be pharmakeia, or maybe it's not. I might have to look that up for myself, but I'm pretty sure in the Greek New Testament where you see sorcery about the mother harlot, it's actually pharmakeia. It's talking about drug sorcery. That sells the nations by her whoring and the peoples by her sorceries. Again, probably that word in the Greek. I would have to look it up to make sure that's probably referring to pharmakeia there. So again, the abundance of her fornication, she sells the nations by her fornication, and she's skilled in sorcery. Okay, so she sold the peoples by her whoring and her sorceries. Okay, so let's go back to the study here. If you look at the book of Revelations here, you got skilled in sorcery that sells the nations by her whoring and peoples by her sorceries. Revelations 18:23, we're going to go there real quick. And we're trying to move real quick with this study and not waste too much time. Okay, let's go to the Son of Man Bible. I actually like this Bible in certain verses. Let's see here. Revelations 18:23 says, all right, let me make sure here. Yep, verse 23, the light of a lamp will not shine in you anymore. The voices of the bridegroom and the bride will not be heard in you anymore. For your merchants were the princes of the earth, and the ethno-linguistic nations were deceived by your pharmaceutics, drug sorceries, witchcraft. Yeah, they actually did a pretty decent job with this verse because the Greek word for nations is actually ethnos, like ethnicities, okay? Again, so it's talking about different ethnicities, people of every ethnicity, you know, what we call race, you know, in modern terminology. Okay, so Revelations 18:23 in the Greek New Testament matches up, in my opinion, perfectly with Nahum 3:4 of the Septuagint, the way it's worded. So now we're going to go back to the difference in Almighty versus of armies. Okay, so you got Nahum 3:5. Okay, so Nahum 3:5 here. I'm going to go back to the Tanakh here. Okay, Nahum 3:5. See, I am against you, declares Yahuwah of heavenly armed forces. I will raise up your skirt over your face and show your private parts to the ethnos or ethno-linguistic nations, your shame to the kingdoms. Interesting. So that's the Son of Man Bible. I wonder if they used the Masoretic though. It says, Yahuwah Elohim Almighty, I will uncover your skirt in your presence. I will show the ethnos your shame and the kingdoms your disgrace. Okay. Again, the difference here in the ESV and the Masoretic says, behold, I am against you, declares Yahuwah of armies. That's pretty much the major difference. Other than that, it's almost word for word the same. So we're going to move on here. So you get the point there. Septuagint, Elohim Almighty, Masoretic text, armies. Okay. And here we go. Nahum chapter 3, verse 8. She that dwells among the rivers is round about her, whose dominion is in the sea and whose walls are water. So again, I mentioned Ezekiel 29:3 earlier. Okay, so it looks like we got another connection with the great dragon of Ezekiel 29:3 with Nineveh, which this nation, Nineveh, is being reprimanded by Yahuwah in the book of Nahum. So here we go. It says, in the Masoretic first, it says, are you better than Thebes that sat by the Nile with water around her, her rampart a sea, and water her wall? Now, if I'm not mistaken, Thebes is a place in Egypt. Okay, so this is talking about the Mizrahites, the Egyptians. Are you better than the Egyptians that sat by the Nile with water around her, her rampart at sea, and water her walls? So I'm guessing Yahuwah is rebuking them for their pride, from becoming haughty. Let's see here. So the Septuagint says here, prepare you a portion, tune the cord, prepare a portion for Ammon, she that dwells among the waters. Water is round about her, whose dominion is in the sea and whose walls are water. It's kind of interesting. Who dwells among the rivers. Yeah, that sounds a lot like Ezekiel 29:3 there. And the major difference I see too, I should have noted on this study, is Ammon versus Thebes. Interesting, the Ammonites are mentioned in the Septuagint, but not in the Masoretic text. Dominion in the sea, whose walls are water. Interesting. So definitely comparing her to the dragon, which is kind of interesting. It's the same type of spirit at work there. Okay. So then we got Nahum chapter 3, verse 10 says, I have a note here, future tense, Septuagint, past tense, Masoretic. All right, we'll see if that's true here. Okay. Nahum 3:10 says in the Masoretic, it says, yet she became an exile. She went into captivity. Her infants were dashed in pieces. At the head of every street, for her honored men, lots were cast. She went into captivity. Her infants were dashed in pieces. At the head of every street, for her honored men, lots were casted. So you have the were dashed in pieces, the were lots cast. Okay, let's see what the Septuagint says here. Yet she shall, okay, shall there. I might want to look at that, see if that's the case. And she into displacement shall go captive, and her infants they shall dash upon the corners. of all her ways, and over all the honorable things they shall cast lots, and all her great men shall be tied. So as you can see here, you have the obvious past tense versus future tense difference of the Masoretic text. Okay, so now we're going to go to verse 12 here. And let's see here. We're gonna, stupid shirt. All right, now we're going to go to verse 12. All your fortresses, I think I'll go to the Masoretic first in verse 12. Okay. All your fortresses are like fig trees, which with first ripe figs, if shaken, they fall into the mouth of the eater. Wow, that's a weird way to phrase it. All your strongholds are as fig trees having watchers. If they be shaken, they shall fall into the mouth of the eater. That's kind of interesting to me, having watchers, fig trees. Interesting. Because Yahusha talks about in end times prophecy that when the figs are ripe, you know that summer is near. And he talks also about that all the stars of heaven shall fall. So we have an interesting, I think it might be an interesting connection here. So let me look for that verse real quick. When the fig tree figs are ripe, you will know summer is near. Okay. Again, here we go. We got Matthew 24:32, which says here, let me just make sure that it's showing this here. Okay, Matthew 24:30. All right, it says here, and I'll read from the NLT. Now learn a lesson from the fig tree. When its branches bud and its leaves begin to sprout, you know that summer is near. And that's Matthew 24:32, which if you look at the actual context of the fig tree, it's talking about angels, okay? Again, when you look at that in the context of watchers, now watchers, and I know this is kind of controversial because some people don't believe in the book of Enoch and that it's inspired, but just consider that watchers is a class of angel in the book of Daniel, and the watchers, they were good and then they became bad because they fell for the women in Genesis chapter 6, which, by the way, is canon. Okay, Genesis chapter 6, 1-4 is canon, and the Septuagint literally says the angels of Elohim came into the daughters of men. Not the sons of Seth came into the daughters of Cain. That makes no logical sense. Okay, nowhere in the Old Testament is B'nai Elohim, sons of Elohim. It would say in your modern English Bibles, sons of God. Nowhere in the Old Testament is that ever categorized as a human being. I just want to make that clear. So just looking at this at context of the watchers on a fig tree, okay, Yahusha says that all the stars will fall from heaven. Just think about that for a second. Will fall from heaven. Okay. Mark chapter 13, verse 25, okay? So, and I'm going to write these for myself because I'm probably going to update this document. So when I give you guys my Google Docs link, you're going to have all these scriptures that you can read for yourself, okay? So it says here, the stars will fall from the sky and the heavenly bodies shall be shaken, okay? All the stars are going to fall, okay? Are going to fall. And I know some of you would say, oh, well, stars are gas planets. Nope, they're not. Okay? The word planet in English, you can look it up for yourself. Okay? The word planet, we get the word in our English language planet. The original Latin word is planetes, which just means wanderer. It doesn't mean gas planet. It doesn't mean a ball of gas, okay? So the word planet never ever meant a physical landmass or a huge big mass of gas. What we got to understand is the original meaning of that word just means a wanderer, okay? A wandering star, okay? And I'm going to show you right here. This is what the actual scriptures teach stars are. It's important to understand this. Even though this is a little bit off topic, I feel like this needs to be understood. Okay, what a star actually is. Okay, so now we're going to go see here. Where is it? Talks about evil. I would be getting in the end. Okay. Here we go. Okay, the 7 stars. I'm gonna have to look that up. I always, for whatever reason, I don't know why I can never find it. It's funny because I used to be able to find it very easily. Okay, the 7 stars are the 7 angels. Okay. Okay. Revelations 1:20. Sorry about that, guys. I don't know why I got lost trying to look for that verse there. Okay, so Revelations 1:20. This is the biblical understanding of what a star is, not what mainstream science teaches you. Okay. As for the hidden meaning about the 7 stars you saw in my right hand, this is Revelations 1:20 here, and the menorah with the 7 golden lamps. The 7 stars are, oh my, really? Did they really put pastors there? Oh my goodness, guys, you gotta be kidding me. You gotta be kidding me. That is stupid. The mystery of the 7 stars which you saw in your right hand and the 7 golden candlesticks. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 assemblies. And the 7 candlesticks which you saw are the 7 assemblies. So John is being given an understanding from this angel, this heavenly messenger. This is the 7 stars are 7 angels. So what he's literally telling John is stars equal angels. They're one and the same. So where you see stars in scripture, it's an angel. That's what it is. Okay, it's important to understand that because the connection here is watchers, stars that are on a fig tree that are being shaken by a mighty wind that are ready, that when the fig tree is ripened, summer is near. So when you start seeing when the stars are falling from heaven, that's one of the signs that we're at the very end, that we're near his return, when all the stars are going to fall. So this is stuff that's really important to understand. Okay, so, and just another thing too, if you really think a star is like this ball of gas, all of those stars are hitting the earth. Okay, if they really are what mainstream science teaches us, we don't have to worry about tribulation because the earth would be utterly destroyed if that's the case. Just think about that for a second. If what we've been taught about heliocentrism is true, just think about that. Okay. Anyway, sorry for that tangent, but anyway, Nahum 3:14. Enter into the clay and be trodden down in the chaff, make the fortifications. Okay, so we're going to look at the 2 versions of verse 14 in this chapter. We're going to get back on topic here. Sorry about that tangent, guys. Again, I did not mean for that to happen. It just kind of happened. Okay, Nahum. I'm going to go to chapter 3, verse 14. We're almost done here, guys. All right, word software's acting a little slow. Here we go. Okay, it says, draw you the waters of the siege, fortify the strongholds, go into clay and shred the mortar, make strong the brick. So basically it's talking about destroying a city. Yahuwah is commanding them to destroy a city. Draw you water for a siege and a well secure your strongholds. Enter into the clay and you be trodden down in the chaff. It's kind of interesting. It mentions the chaff because the chaff is like another word for when you have the tares. So it's talking about being trodden in chaff and make them stronger than bricks. So like the foundations of fortification stronger than brick. What's interesting is the Septuagint mentions the chaff. Now the chaff and the wheat are two separate type of grain. The chaff is the tares, where the wheat are to be grown among. So that's kind of interesting when you look at like the parables of the wheat and all that in the New Testament. It kind of makes sense. You know, he will separate the wheat from the chaff. So it's kind of, to me, there might be a connection there. I don't know. I might be reading too much into that, but there might be a connection. And I might want to write that down real quick. So the wheat from the chaff. Wheat from chaff. Just so you guys can look up all these scriptures for yourself. Okay, so we got two more cross references and this study is going to be done. We got Nahum chapter 3, verse 17 and 18. So we're going to first go to verse 17, which says mixed multitude, which is kind of interesting. So first we're going to go to the Masoretic here. And we're going to look down here at verse 17, which in the Masoretic says, your princes are like grasshoppers, meaning they're small, they're insignificant. Your scribes like clouds of locusts settling on the fences in a day of cold. When the sun rises, they fly away, when no one knows where they are. Wow. Basically, it's saying that their scribes, their princes are weak, they're feeble, they run away when a little trouble comes. Now, if we look at the Masoretic here, it says, your mixed multitude, supposedly multitude is added in. I would have to look that up to make sure that's correct, that it's added in. Okay. Let's see here. Let me try something here. I'm going to try opening up eSword for a second because I don't like that it's saying that that's been added in. Sometimes there's biases with certain programs. I see where one program will say that translation doesn't have it there in the Greek, and then in eSword it says it does. So it's kind of weird. All right, so let me see here. We're going to go to Nahum 3:17. Okay. I mean, according to the Brentons, it's not italicized, so I don't know where they're getting the idea. Your consolation as locusts mounted on the fence. Wow, that's different. Okay, so we're just going to trust that multitude's there. Your mixed multitude has suddenly departed as the grasshopper, as the locust perched on a hedge in a frosty day. The sun arises and it flies off and knows not its place. Woe to them. So this is more or less, what's interesting too, a difference here is the Septuagint is not comparing their princes or their scribes to grasshoppers or locusts. It's actually saying that they're fleeing from the grasshopper and the locust, kind of like, you know, fleeing from plagues. And it's interesting, instead of scribe or princes, it says your mixed multitude, which we know they went into the wilderness as a mixed multitude. Some of natural-born Israelites, you could say, mixed with the Egyptians that wanted to join themselves to Israel, to Yasharal. So it's kind of interesting. There might be a connection with the mixed multitude there. Prophetically, it's kind of interesting. Here we go, and we got the last cross-reference here we have is Nahum chapter 3, verse 18. So we're going to go to that real quick, and I think I will go back to the word software here. All right, here we go, and we're going to go to the ESV here. It says, your shepherds are asleep, O king of Assyria. Your nobles slumber. Your people are scattered on the mountains with none to gather them. Kind of sounds like a interesting connection to the idol shepherd, in my opinion. That's the Masoretic text of the ESV there. So let's go to the Breton Septuagint here. Your shepherds have slumbered. The Assyrian king has laid low your mighty men. Your people departed to the mountains, and there was none to receive them. So, wow, that's a lot different. So you have the Assyrian king in the Masoretic text, the people being described that are scattered, that have no one to shepherd them. In the Masoretic, it makes it sound like these people are not the Assyrians, that it's actually talking about Yasharal, that he's oppressing Yahuwah's people. In the Septuagint, it's likening to those same people that they are actually the Assyrians' people. So it's kind of different. There's like a huge difference in context, in my opinion, in verse 18 here. So to me, that's kind of interesting. Let me just make sure I'm reading that correctly. The Assyrian king has laid low your mighty men. Okay, never mind. I'm reading it incorrectly. My bad. That's my fault. Your shepherds have slumbered. No. Okay. So the Assyrian king has laid low your mighty men, your people to the mountains, and there was none to receive them. Okay, so yeah, that's not as different. That's not as big of a difference. But anyway, this was a study I just really wanted to do. Kind of felt like I wanted to get it done so we can move forward into the larger Masoretic text versus Septuagint studies. My prayer tonight is that this study was a baraka to you guys that have seen it. Thank you for joining me and for watching on Facebook Live. I can't wait for everyone to see it when it gets uploaded to YouTube. Shalom, guys. Leila Tov. Have a good night.